Hello, and welcome to Fresh Blood, a podcast about killing it in the age of ageism, where we prove that new blood does not necessarily equal young blood. Here to discuss what it takes to have continued success through life, I'll be your host, Jothi Downs. With over 20 years of executive recruiting experience, I've learned how much we can grow and be inspired by other people's stories. I'm excited to share that with you here on Fresh Blood. Hello and welcome to Fresh Blood. Today we are speaking with Jothi Dugar. Jothi has enjoyed a thriving career, growing in her roles until becoming Chief Information Security Officer and Cyber Thought Leader with the National Institutes of Health. She is also a corporate success and wellness change agent, a holistic wellness practitioner, a women's empowerment coach and activist, a public speaker, a best-selling author, and a dance director. I think it's fantastic. Jothi is known as the Chaos Guru. She helps executives and their teams use the power of chaos to transform their lives. Jothi, thank you so much for joining us on Fresh Blood. I love all the things that you're involved with, and I'm so looking forward to learning more about your story. Could you tell us a little bit more about your own path to success?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here today. Yes, I think everything in life happens for a reason, and it's happening for you. And I know it's sometimes when you're right in the middle of the chaos, it's hard to see that. um, but that's why I guess they say hindsight is always 2020. So when you look back at your life, everything seems to fit along your dotted line there. And, I am no exception to that rule. So I grew up in a pretty traumatic environment, childhood. And, again, it's when you're in the thick of things, it's hard to see the end picture. But for me, I always visualized where I wanted to be when I grew up, or at least when I'm able to leave that situation. And truth be told, by the time I turned 40, I had achieved all my goals that I had put on myself.
Fantastic. Congratulations. I just want to say congratulations to that.
Thank you. But then I kind of started trying to figure okay, well, what do I do now?
New goals.
And it's just very divine the way that things worked out. I was put in multiple different chaotic or traumatic situations even after my childhood, and again, each one of those have taught me well in using these moments. Once you process the initial emotions and the mental anguish that are unavoidable sometimes. But once you're able to process it and really get yourself to be able to realize, okay, well, what can I learn from this, and how can I use these experiences for not just my own benefit, but to help others, because it's happening for you. It's for a reason. It's for you to then. And it doesn't kill you. If it kills you, that's one thing. But if it doesn't kill you, it does make you stronger. So how can you use that to help others?
Well, that's very powerful that you've had these situations and you haven't let these situations define you. You haven't let them take you down either. I know of many people who go through these situations and they use them as an excuse, really. But you didn't do that. You instead use them to empower you to be better, which I find very powerful. So what would you say to people who might be a little bit stuck in their own story because they've gone through very traumatic things? And granted, it is very hard to pull yourself out of very traumatic experiences. Do you have any advice for that?
Sure. So yes, none of this work is easy, but it's also not easy telling yourself a bad or disempowering story either. Everyone's looking for that magic bullet or the quick fix, which is really never a fix to begin with. So, when you're in the thick of things, allow yourself some grace. There might be things that you might have done, or there might have been things that other people might have done to you or in your life. And yes, just look at it from a factual perspective. What are the actual raw facts in the situation? And then what are the stories that you're telling yourself about these raw facts? So let's just say, I know there's a lot of, marriages that are falling apart in this given day and age. And if we look at that, it's very tempting and easy to blame things on the other person. Like, well, that person was just an ass. And but marriage does involve two people. And when you just look at the raw facts of like, okay, well, what were the actual facts in this marriage? And then what were the stories that I was telling myself about these facts? Do these stories really enable me or empower me to do better or to be better? And if not, tell yourself a different story. If you're telling yourself a story and it's just making you feel mad or angry or revengeful or maybe even jealous, or maybe there's something that you did, or you think you did wrong or could have done better. There it's not going to help you or the other person by just giving yourself a hard time about it, or just telling yourself a disempowering story.
No, you're so right. And the story, it's all in your head. You can tell yourself another story. And the pain that you experience is completely in between your ears. And you can change that pain by changing the story and the way you talk to yourself. I think that's wonderful. You've done a lot. I love how much you're a Renaissance woman. I admire it. I love it. What would you say has been your greatest success at this point? And what did you learn from it?
Sure. I believe my greatest success is in my ability to see what I can do for others. And I know that sounds very cliche, but a lot of times I notice that when I'm able to get through something, and not just get through it, but use it to harness the power of it to become the best person I can be, it seems I get real pleasure from telling my story to others and really see it change their lives, even if they're not joining my programs, or they didn't read my books, or they might have nothing to do with me, but they would have just heard something like this, like a podcast or a talk, or something I said. And then I have so many people coming back to me like, hey, the one thing that you said, we took it, to a whole different level, and now our lives have changed. So it's just a whole different feeling. And even in my dance classes, it's I didn't really think much about it at first. Like, okay, I'm going to teach dance classes, and then I also taught dance classes in a very holistic way. So I incorporated mind, body, energy principles within the dance class, and I just found a lot of thrill and excitement in seeing kids grow. Like, the first thing that came out of them, I was like, I can't do this. This is too hard. I'm like, nope, there's no word called I can't in my class. There's only I will try harder. I will do better.
I want to take your dance class.
Yeah. But by the time they got, after like 3-4 sessions, they're asking, okay, so what's the next move? What you got? I'm like, see, there you go.
You see, you can apply it to anything, including dance. That's fantastic. You have been with your company for many years, and you're doing these different things. I'm curious, how do you stay happy and continuously moving up through the ranks with the company, staying for many, many years with them?
Again, it really depends on the lens you're using. So it's definitely not an easy ride by any means in any organization, but it's what you do with the situation. So, I've had difficult employees actually work for me, and that have given me a hard time. Being like you mentioned, being in cybersecurity, which is a complete male-dominated field, and being a female leader in that space is, what wasn't always an easy path, because you're constantly having to prove yourself even after you get the job. And I used to always think like, oh, why is this the case? Like, why are they giving me a hard time and not this other male figure, that has the same job with probably less experience as me. And really, when I look at my life today, like I'm actually glad I went through that experience because it did make me stronger. And it actually made me realize I do have a voice. I don't have to take it. But I need to figure out how do I resolve this conflict in a way that's actually a win-win. Because um, the really powerful lesson in that is one person that was giving me a real hard time actually changed 180 degrees when just out of the blue one day. And I actually asked him, like, what happened? So you're no longer trying to backstab me anymore? I mean, something must have changed. And what they told me really, I think, has changed my own life. They're like, yeah, we tried really hard to take you down, but you have just shown us that it doesn't matter what we do because you are stronger and more resilient than us. And it actually, you showed us where our own pain lied. So they actually did. Yeah, and this one person did the inner work themselves and realized, like, why do I keep trying to take her down? Like, she's like one of the best bosses I've had, and I keep trying to take her down. And then they actually did a lot of the inner work and completely like changed their life.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I have a lot of admiration for that person because that's not easy. It's not easy to do that. And it's so important. You have to go in and ask yourself, why am I reacting this way to someone? Because people will do that and they don't pay attention to why they're reacting. And it's usually not about the other person. It's about you. so, I love that you held your own, you held your strength so much to the point that you helped bring that change out in other people. What that's a unique situation. It's not a unique situation. It's a situation that a lot of women find themselves in. What advice would you give to other women who are in a similar situation in a male dominated field and trying to find their way to their own success?
I I always find that it's really hard as a woman, especially in male dominated fields, to be authentic and to bring out your vulnerability, which is a woman's biggest strength, her femininity and her vulnerability. And it's really hard to do, especially when people are actively trying to take you down. um, but once you do that and they see that, and you stand by your values, you stand by your authenticity, you're not trying to change. If you wanted to change, then sure, go ahead and change, but do it for yourself. Don't do it for others, whether it's other males or even other females. I have a great story for that too. Just in my current organization, my supervisor used to wear, predominantly male-oriented clothes, like suits and very plain colors, typical blue, black, gray. And I came on board, and I was like, well, I'm just going to be myself, and I like bright colors, and I started wearing them, and she always looked at me like, wow, it's really brave of you. I wish I could be like you. And I'm like, well, you don't need to be like me. You just need to be yourself. um, and if those collared blue shirts make you feel authentic, then wear them. But if you're wearing them just to kind of fit in and, feel more like a male because we are male dominated in our IT cyber environment, then don't do that, because it's going to wear your energy down. And as females, especially as mothers and parents, we need to do a really good job of energy management. So if you're wearing clothes, you're already putting yourself, the moment you wake up, you're putting on your clothes and you're already like shooting yourself in the foot.
Mhm. This is so important. I love what you just said here because it takes me back to just growing up. When you come into these fields, you did try to change yourself as women. You would try to act a little bit more like the men, and adopt their ways and try to do that. And really what we need to do is to embrace ourselves and who we are and bring the amazingness of um, everything that we have to offer to the table and not try to change ourselves to be more like men. We need to raise our own selves up and bring it to the table. So I love that. And it's the best advice that I think people can get right now.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you should also be a doormat, because I've seen people go swing from just one degree to like a completely opposite degree. And that's not what I'm saying at all. It's not to go from a male dominated mask being a female to being a complete doormat and like, okay, just letting everyone run over you.
No, like you said, you have a voice. You use your voice and your authentic voice, and you don't let people speak over you. You don't let them mansplain.
Yeah, and a lot of when it's really interesting when that happens is that just being able to take a step back and realize if someone's shouting at you, about you, to you, they've just shown you their own skill set. It has nothing to do with you. So they're just showing you that they have a lack of skills or ability to control their own emotions. uh, and if you do the same thing back to them, then that it says the same to you. So, a lot of women kind of feel like, well, I don't want to just take what he said. I'm like, you don't want to take what he said. You can respond calmly, and still be effective yourself, by being calm, because just by being calm and not taking that person's energy onto you, you're showing you're at a higher maturity and, elevated level anyway.
Completely agree. Completely. It's great. Now let's flip the question. What about a time you failed at something or had a big mistake or a big obstacle and you overcame it? What did you learn from it?
I don't think of anything in my life as a failure per se. um, because if I didn't fail, then I wouldn't be here today. And that could go for jobs that I might have applied to that I did not get, or even things, my expectations were not managed well by me, and I expected something to happen, but that something did not happen. And at the time, yeah, it feels like a failure, or you feel like you failed at something. But if you didn't do that, then you wouldn't have gotten through to the other side and probably gotten a much better result than you probably would have gotten if you actually didn't fail. So it really opens up a new world. And by failing multiple times at something, it actually just teaches you an even better way of doing it than you originally thought.
Completely agree. Completely agree. I keep that mindset as well. And when I fail, I'm like, well, I tried. Pat myself on the back and let's move along.
And by not trying is when you would have failed for sure.
Exactly. That's what I tell my boys. That's the only time I will be upset is if you don't try. So, what do you think is key to continued success in life?
Is let's see. I think I would say, I know, trying not to be cliche, finding happiness from within or from within you, but it's realizing that everything is happening within you, and realizing that the same something's also happening within another person. And just because it's not the same things that are happening within each of you, it doesn't make either of you wrong. And there's always a third way, which most people don't even realize. Like, it's my way or it's my opinion or your opinion. And then that's it. You have to either swing to my side, or you're forcing me to swing to your side. But there's always a third solution. So there's a lot of work that's being done, research-wise, on polarities. And what they're finding is that there seems to be this thought process in humans where it's either this or this, and that's it. Like, you have to have a lot of structure, or you have to have a lot of flexibility, and you can't have both. And really, you can have both. And it's really kind of getting people to the table to realize that you can have both. You can have like a flexible structure or a structured flexibility. And
Not black and white. Yeah, completely.
yeah. And when you look at life like that, then really you take any problem, unless it's like an actual physical fire you have to put out, like, yeah, then that's not the time to really look at the third way. It's like, no, put the fire and get out. But if it's not like an immediate threat, which is really the only time your ego and your fight, flight, or fear mode in your brain was designed to be used, like if saber-toothed tiger is trying to chase after you, it's not the time to contemplate like, well, I could avoid being eaten and stand my ground. How would I do that? Like, nope, there's imminent danger. You need to just, get the heck out of there. But when it comes to, pretty much anything else that's not an imminent threat, there's always a third way. And it's very different from compromise. So I'm not saying that, well, you give in a little and the other person gives in a little and then just compromise on something that really both of you aren't going to be happy with. It's very different. So when you're able
to look at it.
Yeah, when you're able to find this third way, it actually broadens your whole spectrum. And in essence, you both are happy because you both have contributed to finding and creating this new way.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And opening the mind. Love it. Have you ever experienced ageism yourself in the workplace?
So yeah, it's funny that you asked that because I'm 41 now, almost 42, but I don't know. I've been told that I look like I'm in my 30s and maybe even 20s by some. If they didn't realize that, how many years of experience I've had, or the fact that I have 3 kids. And I always thought as a kid that, oh, hey, looking young is always going to be in my favor. And yeah, it's in your favor when you're trying to get discounted admission to like amusement parks. Which, I mean, I'm not saying I did that, but
it hasn't paid off quite as well in the workplace then.
But in the workplace setting, yeah, it's just no one really. It's much harder, to understand that no one really wanted to be led by someone that looks half their age and probably has half their experience, but still got the job anyway.
Yeah. How did you deal with that then?
Initially I felt the need. Well, I mean, it's especially being in male-dominated environments. Like you almost have to prove to everyone. And it's funny because I didn't really have to prove to my own managers because they're the ones that hired me. So
It's
they had
an internal thing, right? You feel inside that you have to.
Yeah. So the people that I had to manage, that I felt the constant need to keep justifying to them why I got the job. And yes, you probably have 20 years of experience and I look like I'm 20. But I think after some point I felt that, okay, I don't need to prove to them anything because I deserve to have the job. I got it for a reason. And it's actually just being, just being true to myself, being authentic and showing them that, showing to myself or proving to myself that, I got the job because I was qualified to get the job. If they had applied for the job and they didn't get it, that's their own responsibility to deal with that. It wasn't my responsibility to make them feel okay and make them feel, okay, okay, in the sense like, yeah, I'm really sorry you didn't get the job, but you kind of still have to listen to me. And I was doing that for the longest time until I realized, hey, this is their own, that's their issues to deal with. I'm not going to be responsible for how they feel about me. As long as I know I'm doing the best I can and I'm putting the best version of myself out there, then that's the best I can do.
Can you tell us how you decided to become like the corporate success and wellness change agent and do the holistic wellness practitioner? Because these are in addition to your full-time work. How did that come about?
Yeah, so about 3.5 years ago, when my third baby was born, my unfortunately, I was under the care of an incompetent OB who had completely botched my C-section.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, it's actually again, there's no accidents in the world, but of course, it was not an easy time going through it. But yeah, I was given 6 weeks to live. I couldn't really walk for almost a year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, without excruciating pain, and I lost all complete faith in the American healthcare system because none of the surgeons it could figure out what exactly was going on, since she, completely botched everything. So there's a whole lot of, complications that no one could figure out.
I'm
And
sorry, you were given 6 weeks to live, and this was after.
yes, yeah. So yeah, so this is after we were able to get the test done, which was about 5 months into it. Yeah, I was given 6 weeks to live, and we visited about 4 or 5 different surgeons, and they all said the same thing. Like, yeah, you definitely need surgery. We don't really know what we're doing surgery on because it's just so complicated. But if you don't get the surgery or surgeries, you have 6 weeks to live. And I took that as a sign that, okay, there has to be this third way, right? There has to be another way. It's not that, they don't, if they don't know what they're talking about, why would I put my whole body and life under their hands again? So I actually found holistic wellness modalities, like energy healing, mindset, like brain rewiring, and homeopathy, Ayurveda, like just a whole slew of holistic mind body energy techniques, which so I actually was able to get myself past the 6 weeks out of the life threatening mode, into it did take me a good 2.5 years to really recover 100%, but I was learning so much along the way. And then I felt like, okay, there's no way I can keep this to myself.
That's
So I started,
incredible.
yeah, so I started my own holistic wellness practice, and I was doing it just on the side for a while, until I started trying to. I was at a crossroads. Like, well, what do I want to do? Like, should I just move completely into wellness, or should I give up my cyber position? And then it dawned on me, like, well, it's all, both of these aspects are part of me, so why not try to find a way to merge them together? So then I started I actually created a health and wellness program at the NIH, so that I could start teaching others how to, heal themselves, and just use these quick techniques that I learned throughout the day to help them, not get burnt out.
Oh, I'm absolutely fascinated. That is so interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So, I figured that, a lot of times what you have to do, if no one has started something, you have to be that person to start it, and then people will follow.
That's amazing. I just am blown away by that. Now, what would you say? Is there one change that if the listeners are listening right now, that they could make in their life to help them get closer to their own success?
Yeah. So, um, sometimes it starts with forgiveness. And the reason I start there is, a lot of times we're just giving ourselves like way too hard of a time. Like, we can be our biggest critics sometimes. And it's just the ability to forgive yourself, forgive others, and maybe even forgive situations or conversations that might have happened. So forgiveness doesn't always have to be for a person. And the way I look at forgiveness, I actually learned from Oprah Winfrey, was it makes such a big difference, because a lot of people feel like, no, I can't forgive that person, and they or that situation, and they mistake forgiveness for justice, which is two separate things. And the way that Oprah put it in one of her shows was that forgiveness is just letting go of the thought that the past cannot be any different than it already was. And yeah, when you look at it that way, it's like, okay, and I'm not belittling any situation that anyone might have had. I'm pretty sure, a lot of us have gone through some major traumas in our life. But it's just letting go of the thought, like, well, it had to happen that way for a reason. And it's just letting go of the thought that it could have been any different. Whether your parents didn't treat you properly, or whether someone did something to you, you are causing yourself more harm by keeping all of those thoughts and feelings and emotions within you, because you're then being your own block to your success and happiness.
Completely agree. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful things that we can do. The studies actually show that forgiveness creates the ultimate alpha waves in your brain. It creates the same type of brain waves as are found in a monk who's been meditating for like 40 years. So it does amazing things for our brain. And I have to agree with you because I've gone through actually very recently this in 2020 a forgiveness practice and started doing a daily forgiveness meditation, and it has transformed my life and my relationships and in multitudes of ways. It's just letting yourself go from that. It's freeing yourself. You're the prisoner when you hold on to the anger and when you're able to let go of it. It is just freeing yourself. It's not saying it's okay, but you let yourself go.
Yeah, it's definitely not saying it's okay, but it's also helping you realize you cannot be the person that makes sure that there's justice, because that's why the universe is there for you. The universe is always working for you, and there will be justice. But you don't have to be the one that's concerned or that has to make sure that the other person pays for this, because trust me on this. Like, I've seen this happen over and over again, where whatever you thought you wanted to inflict on this other person to make sure that person, faces their karma, the universe always has a bigger plan for them.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that true?
Yeah. And it's kind of scary when you see that happen, but that's all you need to know is just have faith that there is, whether you believe in the universe or God or a higher power. If you believe in a higher power, just leave the justice to them, and just have faith that it will be served in probably a bigger way that you could have ever imagined. But free yourself from inflicting harm on yourself by just keep thinking about that person or situation that happened, because it's not affecting the other person at all. It's only affecting you.
No. And you mentioned forgiving yourself too is just as powerful and just as important. So thank you. This has been great. Before we go, is there anything I haven't asked about or anything that you want to share that we may not have discussed?
No, I know we didn't talk too much about the chaos, but just know that, I know there's a lot of people in chaos right now, and just know that it's nothing to fear. Think of it as your best friend. Sometimes, your best friend's not going to tell you a sugar-coated truth, but it is the truth. So just realizing it for what it is, trying to gain whatever lessons and finding the gift in the situation through the chaos, and then using that chaos as your superpower moving forward is really the key to success and happiness in my books.
I love it. You turn your pain into a successful story, basically. Flip it around. So that's wonderful. You've given us so much to think about. I mean, everything was incredibly valuable. There's a lot to unpack here. Thank you so much, Jothi, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
I loved my talk with Jothi. The very first thing she said was profound. Everything happens for a reason, and it's happening for you. And this is coming from someone who has lived through many chaotic and traumatic situations, both in her childhood and in her adult life. All the situations she has experienced, she feels have been her teachers in her life. Once she processes the mental anguish and emotions, she's able to go back and learn from the experience. She then uses it to help herself and in turn help others. She has become the living embodiment of the adage, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Now, she readily admits that it's not easy. But then she gives us that 1-2 punch, pointing out that it is not easy to tell yourself that bad or disempowering story either. What a moment of clarification. You can choose the story you tell yourself. And if you're going to choose the story you tell yourself, you owe it to yourself to listen to the story that makes you suffer the least. Choose the story that helps lift you up. Jothi suggests that when you're in the thick of things, do allow yourself some grace and some space. But then take a step back and look at the situation from a factual perspective. Look at the story you are telling yourself about these raw facts. Do these stories empower you? Do they help you? Do they make you feel better? If not, it's time to start telling yourself a different story. Even if the negative story is about you, it is not going to help you or the other person if you just continuously give yourself a hard time. Your story unfolds in your own head. You are the creator. All of your pain and anguish, it exists between your ears, and you have the power to change your story. I mean, isn't that incredible? That event in your life that has been silently tormenting you, pull it out, revisit it, rewrite your story around the situation. What can you learn from it? How can you grow from it? How can you use it to be a better person? And then go forth and be that better person. Jothi's greatest success is in her ability to see and find what she can do for others. After Jothi goes through difficulties herself, she uses that experience to help her become the best she can be, and then shares what she learns with others to help them change their own lives. She has learned that great secret that having a positive impact on others' lives gives you the greatest positive impact in your own life. It is a reoccurring theme in the conversation of continued success, and one that everyone should be giving more attention to. Jothi shared her own struggles of being a leader in a male-dominated industry. Being in cybersecurity, she was constantly having to prove herself. It wasn't the easiest ride, and I'm sure it was greatly frustrating many times. But Jothi stuck to her authentic self. She stood by her values and did not give up. She did not allow unhappy men to make her bend. Instead of letting the situation diminish her, she stayed focused on her own work, learned from the experience, and it made her stronger. It made her better, and it created a powerful voice inside of her. She learned how to deal with difficult people and how to resolve conflict in a way that is win-win. Handling difficult coworker situations with the grace that she did not only benefited Jothi, but allowed others to grow alongside of her. People who had been a part of the problem, who actively gave her a hard time, had witnessed Jothi's strength, and it caused them to evaluate their own selves, opening up space for their own inner work to figure out what was happening. This is commendable, and I applaud the people who did that work. It is so easy to get caught up in what you think is right because it's the way it's always been, or not even aware of how your mind is working. It's much harder to take the time to look within, to bring awareness to how you may have erred or misjudged, and to be a big enough person to make those needed internal changes. It's also incredibly rewarding to do so. And by doing that simple exercise, it can change your life. Have you been responding strongly to someone for no good reason? Pay attention to how you negatively react around other people. Your reactions are more often about you and not the other person. Pay attention to take the time to ask yourself, what's really going on here? I thought Jothi's advice for women in the workplace was great and very timely. She advises women to be their authentic selves. Wear what makes you feel good. Lead the way that makes you feel good. Do what makes you feel strong. For too long, women have been trying to adapt to the male-dominated corporate world by being more like a male, when what we need to do is embrace our own strengths and elevate ourselves using our best attributes. We need to lead through our own values and authenticity. If you're going to change yourself, make sure you're doing it for yourself and no other human being. She also advised, if you get the job, there's a reason for it, know you deserve it, know you are worthy, and do the best job you can do. Don't worry about how anyone else feels. It's not your responsibility to make them feel better about their job and their issues. Your only responsibility is to be in charge about how you feel about yourself. One of Jyothi's quick comments I found very profound and want to bring a little attention to it. She said, finding happiness comes from within you. No, and that's not it. I know many of us hear that. We've all heard that happiness comes from within. We know this intellectually, but let's be honest, we really don't sit with it enough. So let's just start there. Happiness comes from within you. Then she followed that up with that in realizing that happiness is happening within you, that you are the source for your own happiness. You can realize that things are happening within another person, and they are their own source for what is happening in them. You are not responsible for their source. You are responsible for your own. And if you both happen to be feeling different things inside of you, it doesn't mean either one of you are wrong. You are simply experiencing different things because it's coming from different sources. You don't have to be tied to other people's emotions. You don't even have to be tied to your own. You have the power to change what is happening inside of you at any time. Another great piece of advice from Jothi was to always look for the third solution. I really liked this. This was an atypical yet needed piece of advice. There is this thought process of things being this way or that way. Pick an option. Like she said, pick structure or flexibility because you can't have both. But that is a false narrative. You can have both. You could have structured flexibility or a flexible structure. Just contribute to finding a new way. Honestly, so much in life is clogged with outdated rules. You don't have to accept the norms. You can question them and keep your eyes open to other possible paths that are available. You can apply this to all aspects in life. Jyothi's parting words were powerful. To the people currently living in chaos, no, it is not to be feared. It is your friend. And like a friend that will give you the brutal truth, use that chaos, learn from it, and make it your superpower moving forward. You can turn your pain into a successful story. Jothi has done it herself many times over. She shared her horrifying experience after having her third child, being told that she had 6 weeks to live, coming back from that by finding a third way, learning a new healing modalities, and then reaching a full recovery a couple of years later. She took that experience and started a new holistic practice because of everything she learned. She now teaches others how to do what she was able to do for herself, and she does this in addition to holding down her full-time Chief Information Officer role. I love that she didn't make a decision between the two. Jothi is honoring all aspects of her interests. You don't have to give up your career to go after something that is speaking to your soul. We are lucky to have options. I'm going to leave you with a very powerful piece of Jyothi's advice. It's where she starts when working with others on healing. She starts with forgiveness. This is really important. Forgiveness not only for others, but for yourself. We can be our biggest and worst critics. And learning to forgive yourself and others is an incredible game changer in your life. I want to share with you a major study that was done to find out how to increase your alpha brain waves. And this is important because alpha brain waves allow a higher state of creativity. It gives you a more relaxed mind, a sense of calm, better problem-solving abilities, and in general, the same benefits you would get from years of consistent meditation. They found that the biggest secret in increasing alpha waves was one thing: forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is not about letting go of justice. It's about letting go of the thought that the past could have been any different than it was. It's a letting go of the hold that that situation or person has over you. The people in the study went through forgiveness meditations, making a list of everyone who had wronged them and focusing on forgiving one person a day. The participants said the process made them feel unfuckwithable, truly at peace and in touch with themselves, in a place where nothing anyone said or did could bother them. Who doesn't want to feel that way? So I'm going to leave you here with this 6-step process that you can use to help with forgiveness. It's easy to say, go forgive, but here's an actual step-by-step process. First, you pick a person that you want to forgive. Close your eyes. Picture the space where the situation occurred or a place where you feel safe. Second, see that person in front of you. Tell them how they wronged you. Feel the emotion. Relive the pain and anger, but only for a couple of minutes. Third, think about what you learned from the situation. Ask yourself, how did the situation make my life better? How did I grow from this? Fourth, you're going to think about the person. Think about how they might have been hurt in the past. Think about the things that shaped them in life. Fifth, attempt to see things from their eyes. See the situation that you are forgiving from their perspective. Try to feel compassion for the person. And sixth, finally, forgive into love. Imagine hugging them. Imagine passing love onto them. Feel it and feel yourself letting go. Feel yourself lightening. I have personally adopted this forgiveness practice over the past year, and it has brought me more peace than I can possibly describe. I have let go of many painful memories and have found myself released from so much wasted negative energy. I have found it transforming relationships that I wasn't sure were salvageable. I have found deep sleep where there was once insomnia. It has been a gift, and I encourage you to consider making it a practice in your life as well. Make a list, pick a person or an act a day, and slowly release yourself of those negative burdens. It will only leave more space for your own success. As they say, to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that that prisoner was you. Until next time. Thank you for spending time with us on Fresh Blood. If you love this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, or giving us a review. I'm looking forward to connecting with you again on the next episode.